If you're an Azure admin, chances are you have worked with Azure Resource Manager or ARM templates at some point. In this video, I want to help you make the transition from using ARM templates to Terraform. Let's break down how they differ and how understanding those differences can really help you make the switch more easily. So first things first, language. ARM templates uses JSON, while Terraform uses something called HashiCorp Configuration Language or HCL. Now, one of the cool things about HCL that it supports comments. You can throw in a simple hash mark and write a comment, which is super useful when you're organizing or documenting your code. With JSON, like in ARM templates, you don't really have that option. Sure, you can add metadata, but it's not the same as just popping in a quick note. HCL is more forgiving when it comes to syntax, making it easier to read and work with. Let's dive into the terminology, as this is where many people get confused when transitioning from ARM templates to Terraform. In ARM, you've got parameters. These are the values you pass in your template. In Terraform, those are called variables. Seems simple enough, right? But here's where it gets a bit tricky. ARM templates also have something called variables, but those are values defined within the template. In Terraform, we call those local variables. So a little difference in naming, but it is important to keep in mind when you're transitioning. Next up, resources and functions. Both ARM templates and Terraform deal with resources like virtual machines, network, and storage. But the way you interact with them is a little different. Both systems also have functions to manage things like strings, numbers, and dates. In Terraform, though, I would say it is a bit easier to reference resources and use functions thanks to HCL's more user-friendly structure. Now, one of the big differences between these two is how they handle dependencies. With ARM templates, you have to be very explicit. Let's say you're setting up a virtual machine that depends on a network card or NIC. In ARM, you have to specifically tell it that the VM depends on the NIC. Terraform, on the other hand, is smart enough to figure that out on its own. It automatically builds a dependency graph, so it knows, hey, I need to create the NIC first before I create the virtual machine. This makes your life a lot easier because you don't need to spell out every single dependency. All right, let's move on to how you reference resources. In ARM templates, you would typically use something like a reference function, or you might concatenate the name of a resource to get what you need. Terraform simplifies this by using resource addressing, which is just a more straightforward way of referencing to resources. And if you need to pull in information from Azure itself, Terraform tells you to do that with a data source. Now, what about reusing templates? In ARM, you would use a nested template reference. So if you've got a template for setting up a virtual network, you can just call that as a nested template within another template. Terraform does something similar, but instead of nested templates, it uses modules. You can create a VNet module and then reference that in your main configuration. Same idea, just a different way of doing it. To sum it all up, moving from ARM templates to Terraform isn't as tough as it might seem. You just have to get familiar with the different terminology and the way Terraform handles dependencies and resources. But once you do, you'll probably find that Terraform is more flexible and easier to work with, especially with its simpler syntax and automatic dependency management. I hope you like this video. For more videos like these, please subscribe to my channel.